They are the rock stars of the medieval world. Warriors in white mantles, emblazoned with a blood-red cross, the elite fighting force of the Crusades. But they were more than that. They were monks, they were bankers. And, if you believe the stories, they were the secret guardians of Christianity's greatest treasures, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, maybe even the bloodline of Christ himself. They are the Knights Templar. No other historical group has inspired such a wild, intoxicating, and persistent mythology. Thanks to books like the Da Vinci Code and video games like Assassin's Creed, they have been transformed from historical figures into the masterminds of a grand, centuries-spanning conspiracy. They are the keepers of secrets, the puppeteers of history. But what if the truth is both simpler and, in some ways, far more interesting? What if the Templars weren't guardians of a secret, but pioneers of a revolutionary new idea, international banking? And what if their brutal, shocking downfall had nothing to do with heresy, and everything to do with money, power, and the greed of a ruthless king? Today, we are drawing our swords and charging into the heart of the mystery. We will separate the historical fact from the Hollywood fiction and uncover the real, incredible story of the Knights Templar. To find the real Templars, we have to go back to the beginning. The year is 1119. The place is Jerusalem. 2 decades have passed since the end of the First Crusade, which had captured the Holy City for Christendom. But the victory was precarious. The roads of the Holy Land were infested with bandits. Christian pilgrims, who had traveled thousands of miles to visit the holy sites, were being routinely robbed and slaughtered. The new kingdom needed a police force. And so, a French knight named Hugues de Payens and a small group of 8 other knights made a radical proposal to the king of Jerusalem. They offered to form a new kind of order. They would be monks, taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But they would also be warriors, dedicating their lives to protecting the pilgrims. They would be the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, so named because the king gave them headquarters in a wing of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which was believed to be built on the site of Solomon's temple. They became known, simply, as the Templars. For the first decade, they were a tiny, obscure group. So poor, the legend says, that 2 knights had to share a single horse and image that would later become their famous seal. But everything changed when they received the official blessing of the most powerful man in Christendom, the Pope. In 1129, the Church officially recognized them as a religious order. But they were a special kind. They answered to no king, no bishop, no local lord. Their only master on earth was the Pope himself. This gave them incredible autonomy and a tax-exempt status across all of Europe. Donations began to pour in. Powerful nobles, eager to support the defense of the Holy Land, gave them money, land, castles, and farms across Europe. The Order of the Temple was becoming rich, but it was their next innovation that would make them powerful beyond anyone's imagination. The Templars' greatest contribution to the world wasn't on the battlefield, it was in the world of finance. They solved a problem that had plagued every pilgrim and crusader: how to travel with money safely. Carrying large amounts of gold and silver across thousands of miles of dangerous territory was a death sentence. The Templars invented a brilliant solution. A noble in London, planning a pilgrimage, could deposit his gold at the London Temple. He would receive a coded letter of credit. When he arrived in Jerusalem, he could present that letter at the temple there and withdraw his funds in the local currency. They had essentially invented the traveler's check. This system was revolutionary. Soon, they were not just transferring funds for pilgrims, but for kings and popes. They managed estates, collected taxes, and offered loans. With their network of fortified preceptories all across Europe and the Holy Land, their tax-exempt status, and their army of loyal knights, they became the first and most trusted multinational corporation. Their wealth and power grew exponentially, but so did their enemies. On the battlefields of the Middle East, they were the elite shock troops of the Crusader armies. They were disciplined, fearless, and fanatical, forbidden from retreating unless outnumbered more than 3 to 1. But they were not invincible. By the late 13th century, the tide was turning. One by one, the Crusader states fell. In 1291, the city of Acre, the last Christian stronghold in the Holy Land, was conquered. The Crusades were over, and this created a massive identity crisis for the Templars. Their original mission protecting the Holy Land was gone. But their vast wealth, their network of castles, and their private army all remained. They were a powerful, independent military force, with no war to fight, stationed right in the heart of Europe. And one very powerful king saw them not as holy warriors, but as a threat and an opportunity. His name was Philip IV of France. King Philip was ambitious, ruthless, and deeply in debt. He had borrowed heavily from the Templar order to finance his wars, and he had no way to pay it back. He looked at the Templars and saw an incredibly rich, powerful, and now vulnerable organization sitting right in his kingdom. And he devised a plan to destroy them and take their wealth. He couldn't attack them militarily, but he could attack them with something far more potent: heresy. Working in secret with a corrupt pope he controlled, King Philip prepared his strike. Then, on a single day, Friday, October 13, 1307, his agents moved across France, arresting every Templar they could find, including the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. Yes, this is one of the most popular theories for the origin of the unlucky Friday the 13th superstition. The charges leveled against them were designed to be as shocking and repulsive as possible. The Templars, the supposed ultimate defenders of the faith, were accused of being secret heretics. The charges included denying Christ and spitting on the cross during their secret initiation ceremonies, worshipping a pagan idol head called Baphomet, and engaging in institutionalized homosexuality. Then, the torture began. Under the brutal hand of Philip's royal inquisitors, the Templars were stretched on the rack, their feet were burned, and they were subjected to unimaginable pain until they confessed. And, under torture, many of them did, they confessed to everything. These confessions, extracted under duress, were the only evidence ever produced against the order. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, at first confessed under torture, but then, in a stunning act of courage, he publicly recanted his confession. For this, King Philip had him slowly burned at the stake in Paris in 1314, according to legend. With his dying breaths, de Molay cursed both King Philip and the Pope, summoning them to God's judgment within a year. In a strange twist of fate, both men were dead before the year was out. So where does all the conspiracy stuff come from? The Holy Grail, the secret bloodline, the idea that the Templars survive in secret to this day, it comes from much, much later. The idea of the Templars as secret, esoteric guardians didn't really take hold until the 18th century. 400 years after they were destroyed, this was the age of Freemasonry. Masonic lodges, looking for a historical lineage, began to adopt the imagery and legends of the Templars. They created elaborate rituals based on a romanticized, fictionalized version of Templar history. This is where the idea of the Templars as an ongoing secret society was born. The rest of the myths, the Holy Grail, Baphomet as a real demon, the Ark of the Covenant, are almost entirely modern inventions, popularized by sensationalist books in the 19th and 20th centuries, and then supercharged by entertainment like the Da Vinci Code. There is zero credible, historical evidence that the Templars ever found or guarded any of these things. The charge of worshipping an idol head named Baphomet was almost certainly a fiction invented by their accusers. The real story of the Knights Templar is not a story of esoteric secrets, it's a tragedy. It's a story of how a dedicated and innovative order of warrior monks became so rich and powerful that they became a threat to a greedy king, who then used religious paranoia and brutal torture to destroy them and seize their assets. They were not destroyed because they were heretics, they were destroyed because they were rich. So, the next time you hear a wild conspiracy theory about the Knights Templar, remember the real history. Remember the pilgrim protectors, the innovative bankers, and the tragic victims of a ruthless king's greed. The truth, in this case, is far more compelling than the fiction. What do you think? Why do we find the idea of secret societies like the Templars so endlessly fascinating, even when the historical evidence isn't there? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this deep dive into medieval history, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that separates myth from reality. Thanks for watching.